Hey everyone, this is the second part of last week's episode. If you didn't hear it, hit pause, go back a week to catch up.
Yeah, everybody needs some kind of estate planning as soon as you become an adult. Everybody does. And, going from sort of young adulthood and through later in life, your planning is going to look different. So, how often should you look at your plan?
Right, yes,
We
exactly.
always say every 5 years or
Okay.
upon major changes in life.
Okay.
Marriage, births, deaths, adoptions, massive changes in net worth.
Hi everyone, I'm Lexi Calise. Do you feel the squeeze of caring for an elderly loved one and school-aged children? Then welcome to the Sandwich Stories. Let's dig in. So we were talking about sending your kids off to school.
Yes.
What they need.
Yes.
That they need an estate, or they need estate planning in a sense.
In a sense, yeah.
In a sense, because there's some documentation that they need.
Yeah.
And when they go off to college.
And easy to obtain. So, I would say as part of any sort of college planning course, a discussion about those documents that they need should be high on the list. And can be easily done before they go. And then you keep the original, they keep an original, or you keep a copy and they keep the original. Fine, however you want to do it. Mileage may vary based on your kid's maturity level, right?
Yeah, so, I would say so. There's some that maybe you don't leave.
You just keep all the original.
You don't leave them with anything, right? You just kind of say, "Oh no."
Yes. So yeah, everybody needs some kind of estate planning as soon as you become an adult. Everybody does. And going from sort of young adulthood and through later in life, your planning is going to look different. So how often should you look at your plan?
Right, yes, exactly.
We always say every 5 years or upon major changes in life.
Okay.
Marriage, births, deaths, adoptions, massive changes in net worth. So that means if you sold a company and your payday hit, but if you've retired and now you're looking at a different sort of income situation, let's look at your estate planning and make sure that we're utilizing the correct tools for what might have worked for you when you were 45 does not necessarily work for you when you're 75. And lots of people feel like they do a will once and that's it. Or they engage in trust planning, which is another tool that we have to use. And they think my trust can never be changed. I've never heard the word irrevocable used so incorrectly so many times in my life. There is both revocable, which means I can revoke it and change it. And irrevocable types of planning. So just make sure whatever you're signing and doing, you're doing with a seasoned estate planning attorney.
Exactly.
Because you don't want to be put into something that, heaven forbid, in the future you really can't change. Right?
Yeah.
And that is important. That's important to talk about for tax purposes. Really advanced planning, I'd say like modules and tools should be done by advanced planners. And they'll tell you if they do advanced planning. Many advanced planners are board certified. Many have at least 10 years experience. Most estate planners I know too, who have just gotten in the business, this was me forever, and the first 5 years of my practice will say, I don't do trust planning. That's too scary, because it is.
It is.
Yeah, it's a lot. But there's simple, what's called living revocable trust planning that we can utilize to help avoid probate. We can do certain deed work to avoid probate, all those things, but they still all come with a will.
Yes.
You're still going to always sign
still need a will.
Still sign a will.
Still have to have one.
Yes. And then you're always going to have potentially other documentation too. And that's going to be all those living documents. There's all kinds of myths too in Texas. Yes, you can have a fully handwritten will in Texas. It is incredibly difficult to probate, but we can do it. If that chooses to be your path, go with Jesus is what I say. Because I can't tell you the kind of stuff I've seen, fill in the blank wills trying to be proved up as handwritten. It has to be completely in the testator's handwriting.
Goodness.
The wife wrote the will for the husband and the husband signed it. Is that a will, even though it's all in her handwriting? No. It has to be completely in his handwriting. So too many people, I think, not too many, but enough people try to game the system such that you get some really great, crazy stories.
I'm sure.
This area of the law always feels like some days I'm working in a law school exam or something. And it's why there's so many. Why is it always in movies, the reading of the will, or someone dying without a will, or the families laughing to the bank, and all that kind of stuff? Because this area of the law is weird and it's interesting and it's archaic. I think I told you earlier, the terms are so old that when I went to the House of Seven Gables, which is outside of Boston, Salem, I believe it's in Salem, Massachusetts. So that home the original probate inventory was up on the wall to illustrate that people were chattel at the time. So slaves.
Yes.
Okay. Were listed as property of the estate, which horrible. And that's what it was highlighting, was the slaves that lived on the, in the area. But what I thought was also striking about the inventory is that it's not very much different at all from an inventory we would file now.
I'm sure.
In the year of our Lord 2024. So it's like, wow, it really doesn't change.
No.
Of all the areas of the law, like think of real estate, like you can do so much by DocuSign now.
Yes.
You can do a number of things contractually. You can't do a will by DocuSign. You still have to go to probate court, and we file these things with real signatures. We call them wet signatures. That just, and I don't see that changing. You know, there's a lot of discussion about blockchain technology and AI and all of that. You know, if we haven't changed over the last 250 years of our country's history, I don't see it changing rapidly in the future. So I don't think you need to write your will with AI. That's a new one. You know, do I think AI is useful in the law? Yeah, absolutely. For practitioners, yes. But is it going to be something that anybody off the street should AI their will? No, don't do that. You know, so you're just going to have to talk to a lawyer. Which is, I understand, a bummer, but it is part of sort of the process. You talk to your CPA most likely once a year, potentially.
Exactly.
You know, you're going to talk to your financial planner once a year. Just loop us in on that conversation. If you can, or at least every 5 years. And I have so many great professional relationships with so many CPAs and financial planners who really do know that planning is about whole person planning.
Exactly.
And so talk to your CPA and your financial planner about an attorney referral.
I can attest to the fact that with my mother, she has all of these things in place and has for a long time. Like I said, it's not something we hid in our family. I was 11 years old and I said, I want that chair when my Grammy dies. I literally was sitting in it when we had a phone conversation 2 days ago.
Oh my gosh.
33 years later, it's my chair.
That's right.
But I stuck my name on it when I was 11. And
Perfect.
And that was okay. That was a thing that we do in my household. It's not something, we know it's happening. We know it's going to happen. And you want your loved ones to have the things that they want, or you want them to have. And that also comes with security and to know these things. Don't be afraid of talking to a lawyer. Also, it doesn't cost as much as you think it does. I think a lot of people expect it to be tens of thousands of dollars because they see things on TV or they hear or this or that. Like you said, there's so many locations you can go to get things done at a very low cost, but then you know things are taken care of.
The more complicated you are, the more things that you own, the higher your net worth, the more money you're going to spend in your planning, because there's going to be multiple levels of documents.
Exactly. Yes.
But that is going to be also, again, talking with a professional planner who's going to walk you through the process and how they're going to build that asset protection and, you know, succession scheme, right? So yes, there are definitely people who have hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of planning over the course of their lifetime. Fine. That happens. They're CEOs. They're, you know, serial entrepreneurs. They have a huge, massive ranch or whatever in East Texas, and they're operating it and whatever. So that is all real and true. But for the average human around here, you're not going to spend much more than $5,000, and that would be on the high end.
That's the high end.
The high end for, you know, revocable trust planning with a will and deed work and transitioning property over. So I think for, you know, a will, I hate to quote pricing because it's always changing.
It does. It changes.
But I don't think if someone tells you it's going to be $7,500 for a will, I'd have a hard conversation as to why. And then always, like all things, like get a second opinion, get a third opinion. Talk to your local, I mean, I'm going to plug the chambers of commerce, talk to your local, you know, estate planning. So there's estate planning sections of the bars. So you can, you can always call, I know in Tarrant County, the Probate Bar Association, and they have a list of attorneys. They can't recommend anyone, but they can say, here,
they can say here,
they practice in this area. And then also what's really neat now I'm seeing is a lot of employment plans are covering some kind of,
I was going to say the same thing. So my husband works for American Airlines. They have this option and it helps. We've used it. My husband and I have used it. We set up our trust with it. This is how we've done it. And like you've said, we have changed things. So we have changed our trust multiple times because when my son was first born, my mother was his legal guardian should something happen to us. Right. As I wouldn't be doing this podcast if we were not in the situation where she is not able to do that anymore. Right. So then I had the second choice, Plan B. Yeah. Plan B was wonderful. They've known him since he was born. Their daughter's was his auntie. They actually saw him the day he was born. They were the people he was going to go with. They also knew how to help him navigate higher education and all these things. Their father is a multi-million-dollar entrepreneur, so he knows how to guide. Great. Pandemic came. We did not sit on the same side of the fence when it came to choices, when it came to the pandemic. And that had never been a problem for us in our relationship. I had known them 17 years. Wow. So I never had this problem ever. Mm-hmm. Pandemic came and we just sat on two sides of the fence. And my husband said, this cannot happen. We cannot have our son go with people who we fundamentally do not agree with, and they fundamentally did not agree with us. Right. It was mutual at that point. And that was mutual. Yeah. And so we said, no, thank you. Time to change. And so it's time to change again. And so then we called our lawyer and we did the same thing. We changed it again. Those small changes shouldn't be thousands of dollars. No, it's not thousands of dollars. Yeah. It's the time. Actually, the hardest part was scheduling the time with the lawyer that I could be there and my husband could be there at the same time. Yes, that is the hardest. Everybody struggles with that. I was like, oh my gosh, this is so hard. And the secretary, that poor woman, she had to give us like 10 options at 2 different offices say, we do that too. Which office are you going to go to that you can both be there at the same time? Yes. So, but it came through the corporation, came through AMR Corporation, and we were able to use it and utilize it. My mother has her own private attorney that she uses. She pays more money for that person, but she has a larger estate and needs to have these things put in place. But when it comes to planning also, like we said, changing, it's easy to change. We've changed these things. I can personally attest that when my parents were planning their estate and I was in my 20s, I went with them because I wanted a living will, because I had the deathly fear of getting into a coma and someone was going to pull the plug early and I could have come out of it. Right. So I had that written in my... Perfect. Because that's who I was when I was 20. If you have strong feelings. When I was 20, really this is what I thought was going to happen. Yeah. I don't believe it so much anymore. But I also started dating someone for a long time my parents did not like. Yeah. At all. And I did not end up with him. I did not like him at all in the end also. But you came around. I came around. Yeah. So, but they actually rewrote their will. Mm-hmm. That said, because they thought, oh gosh, what if she marries this person? Right. We pass away. Yeah. And this person we hate is going to have access to things that are right. Right. So they actually wrote their will that if they should die, I got half of my inheritance at 35. Uh-huh. And the other half when I was 45, because they were hoping by the time I hit 45, I wised up and got rid of him and I would have gotten the other half. That's how my parents' brain work. That's, and that is not uncommon when we get planning for people that because who you are at 20 and you're stupid and you're making all the bad decisions. Thank God my parents, and that's not uncommon. This. Part of asset protection, people seem to think that we're locking things away in trust forever. No. Not necessarily. No. And oftentimes it can. For most planners, you want things to go down the descendant line, right? It's going to be people who are related to you because I would say you've given birth to them, right? Yes. So they're your descendants. If your daughter is young and, dating and well, I can tell you that. Set aside her side interest. You can hold, distributions back like that. Mm-hmm. There's all kinds of levers we get to pull. I would say I've got a control room and you tell me what you want. And if it's legal right. Yes. and enforceable, yes. I can do it, and we can structure things to make the most sense for your family. Because
Families are difficult.
Yes.
No matter what.
Yes.
I don't care what family you're in.
No.
I don't care what background. Family problems know no age. They
No.
know no income level. They know nothing.
Yeah.
You know, so everybody's got.
Well, and you could have the best family dynamic, and then sadly, whatever reason, death comes along, and it just changes the dynamic on its head.
And honestly, that happens.
And it happens a lot. I've seen it happen personally in my own family. And it's really sad to see. And and we're to the point where I don't think there's a turning point. Like sadly with my extended family, like there's just no way with as many olive branches as we have put out.
Yeah.
They're not receiving them and they're not accepting them. And so we have had to make the decision to move on. And to not dwell on it, it's
and
sad.
What a shame, right?
But it's a shame.
Yeah.
But sadly, death does something to people sometimes. But also, if you have things in place, then it doesn't always have to become so personal.
And remembering too that anybody who's dealing with your estate, like personally, is also going through the grief of losing you. And grief has been shown to fundamentally change your brain chemistry.
Yes.
So I mean, having, you know this, I lost my father-in-law and my father within 6 months. My husband and I both lost our dads right before we turned 40. So to say that the last year and a half were horrible is just the biggest understatement of my life. I am a different person than I was before. And I mean, all the planning was done. So could you imagine if I had been in a situation with my mom and we had to do an intestate administration and all of that? Like and we're not even complicated. My parents were married 42 years. Right. You know, any time there's been divorce or death or anything like that, you have to understand that people are also personally going to be dealing with things. The greatest gift you can give your family is a detailed outline of what you want done. And make it so that it's enforceable. I always lose just a little bit of respect for people who say, I'll be dead, they'll deal with it. I'm gone. It's like, well, if you care about them while you're alive, certainly I would think you'd want to put a little bit of care into ensuring that they don't want to bring you back up and kill you after you're dead. You know?
No. Yes. I mean, we don't want to be like that commercial recently where the cat gets the whole estate and the son gets the train set.
That's right.
Like we don't.
That's right. That's right. It's Leona Helmsley, right? She put it all in trust for her dog. Yeah.
So it's gonna. We don't want that either. But it'd be slightly funny.
It is. Oh,
I think that would be kind of funny, but
I know.
So, Candace, I want to say thank you for coming on. She is going to be my podcast resident estate attorney and planner. And she's going to be here for all my questions later down the road too, when they come up. And just real quick, let's go through the top 5 forms again.
Top 5 documents.
And when do you need to start your estate planning?
Every adult should start estate planning starting at 18.
Okay.
It sounds crazy, but it's true.
Yes.
You need to have a medical power of attorney, a durable power of attorney. Just think of it as financial power of attorney, a HIPAA waiver, an advance directive. If you own property, you need to have a last will and testament.
Yes.
If you have children who are under the age of 18, you need a last will and testament and guardianship designation. These are all critical documents, whether you have $100,000 to your name, $1,000 to your name, or $10 million to your name.
Right.
At a minimum, those are your 5. More advanced planning needs may vary based on your net worth and your particular circumstances. If you've got adopted children, if you have children from a previous marriage, if you have, blended families are a whole different bag of weeds.
I'm sure.
So, and different rules come with them. So make sure that you reach out to someone as life progresses and people live and move on. That's what we got.
Yeah. Well, thank you again. I want to say thanks again. And thanks, everybody. Get those wills taken care of. Get your estate planning taken care of. And don't be afraid of it. Talk about the death. It will happen. Okay. Thanks again. I appreciate it.
Thanks.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to Sandwich Stories. I really hope you learned some new things and enjoyed it. If you did, tell a friend. Tell your mom, tell your sister, tell your dad, tell everybody you know to also listen. Maybe they'll learn some new things, how to help each other out, and find us at Sandwich Stories Podcast. Thanks so much.